list of materials used in this project, check out the description below and click on Show More. There's some other good stuff down there, so you'll want to make sure you check it out. We're going to start with the clasp that we're going to make. The clasp is going to be a little right angle weave ball or cube, whatever you like to think of it as. So we're going to start with that. If you're familiar with right angle weave, then this will be a piece of cake for you. I have my stop bead on here. It's a silver stop bead, so it's a little hard to see. And then I have 4 fire polished round beads. And these are going to be the 4 that form the first section of my right angle weave. I'm going to take my needle and thread and pass through this bead that is next to my stop bead. So the first of the 4 beads that I originally picked up in this little section of 4. And I'm going to go through all of these again. Just pass through each one of these beads. And if you go through them all again, it will make your section of 4 here. It's a little square, a little circle, whatever you want to think of it as. It's going to make it tighter, and it's going to make it less likely to come loose later if you go through it again. Go up through the next bead, so we're just going to pass through one more bead here. I'm just moving a little farther away from my stop bead. And I'm going to add a couple more sections of right angle weave. So I'm going to pick up just 3 beads this time. I'm sharing the bead here at the end. I'm sharing the bead where my thread is coming out. So that bead that I'm sharing plus the 3 will be my 4 for my right angle weave section. Pass through that bead that I'm sharing, and that will add the 3 beads to sit right next to the previous section of right angle weave. And again, if you want to go through these beads again, go for it on a little project like this. I do like to go back through. It makes things tighter, and sometimes on your second pass going through, it also just helps you get beads more aligned correctly. So for something like a faceted round, it may not matter that much, but for some shaped beads, for some bicones or crystals, it may be nice just to pass through, and it gives you a second opportunity to just make sure that everything is sitting where you want it. So now I want to be coming out of the bead at the end of my right angle weave. Again, working opposite. So my stop bead over here. So I'm working in this direction here, getting farther away from my stop bead. I'm going to add another section. So again, I'm just going to repeat these steps. Pick up 3 beads, pass through the bead that you're sharing. And for this particular project, I'm going to pass through all the beads again. Because this is going to be the clasp, this is going to be kind of like the cup button. It's not a button, of course, but it's that part of the clasp that the loop will go around. So I don't mind having extra thread running through my beads to make it a little stiffer, to make it a little thicker, just to give it that extra bit of strength, because that's where I'm going to be pulling. That's what I'm going to be working with every time I want to take my bracelet on and off. So it doesn't help to just reinforce that. I have 1, 2, 3 sections of right angle weave. And we all know that 4 sections or 4 sides is going to make a box. So if I take my 3 sections here, look at them as 3 sides, and I put them into a box shape where I have the 2 ends meeting, I already have a bead here at this end and a bead here at this end that I can use for that fourth section or that fourth side of my box. So all I'm going to need to do is add a top and a bottom to that. As I have my thread coming out, and it's coming out, holding it this direction, it's coming out to the right. So I'm going to pick up a bead, and I'm going to go from right to left through the bead opposite here, all the way on the other side of my project, and here I'm near the stop bead again. So if I pull this, I'm going to bring my ends together, and now I've got the top bead. I have my side bead, and my top bead here. I need a bottom bead to sit across from my top bead. So coming out of one of my side beads here, I have picked up a bead, and I'm going to go up on the other side. Oops. And sometimes that happens. And sometimes it happens and then you get a little disoriented. Give it a nice tight pull and go back through those beads. And you can, if that does happen to you, what just happened to me, you can easily get yourself orientated again because you know where your stop bead was, you know what it looked like when you were working with it. So here's my stop bead. I have my thread coming out of my bead here, and I'm going to go through all these beads again, all these beads that are in this section of my right angle weave, until I feel that there's no slack and there's no give. Everything is sitting properly and it's where it should be. So that is to make the little cube. Now we also want to reinforce, as we did all of the four sides, we want to then enforce the top and the bottom of the cube. So we had our four sides, but now we know that the cube has 6 sides. It has the 4 walls, and then it has like the roof and the basement, if you think of it like a house. And you can easily tell where your roof and your basement are, because these are the beads, these are the 4 beads that don't have any thread already running through them connecting them. I'm going to take my needle and thread, and I have those 4 beads that I can see have no needle and thread or no thread connecting them. I'm going to pass through the first of those beads, and then I'm going to treat this just like any other right angle weave section and go through it at least once, but probably twice, since I want to have this reinforced. So I've gone through once, and I'll go through twice here. And if you lose track of where you are, that's fine. You just want to make sure that you're reinforcing it and everything feels like it's where it should be. So now we want to flip when we go to the other side. So I'm going to take my needle and thread through one bead here on the side, and then once I take it up through that bead, I should have facing me the 4 other beads that are not connected by any thread yet. Take my needle through the first one, and you can see if you've been following along and doing it exactly the way that I have, your stop bead is kind of hanging out up here too. So you can, if you'd like, you can pull that stop bead down a little bit farther on your string if you don't want it to be sitting there and getting tangled. And just like we did on the other side, we're going to take our needle and thread and just go through all 4 of these beads at least once, maybe twice. So now they are connected just as all the other 6 sides now of our cube are connected. So at this point, I have a little cube. It's a little bead, basically. It's a little beaded bead, right angle beaded bead. So if you're familiar with right angle weave, this won't be very difficult for you at all. If you're not, I would take a look at some of the other videos we have on beaded beads, specifically right angle weave. I would also take a look at right angle weave videos and get familiar with that before you tackle something like this. Get familiar with it in the 2D or the flat variety, and then the 3D will make a lot more sense to you. I want to make a wrap bracelet that is also going to serve me as a necklace if I decide to wear it that way. So the easiest way that I have found to determine how long I need to make this wrap bracelet is 3 times the size of my wrist. If I take a little tape measure here, and this is a perfect one, it's just about the size that you need to carry around with you, because you know, and when people know that you make jewelry, people will ask you all the time to make things for you. And then you can just whip this out, get a quick measurement on their wrist, and then take their order. So here you can see if I wrap this around my wrist, and I have it pretty tight around my wrist, but here's the 0, and so I am right at about 6 1/4 for my wrist if it's right up tight against my wrist. So a 7-inch bracelet, giving myself about 1/2 inch of space there to loosen that bracelet up from my wrist. About 7 inches is going to work for me. If I'm going to make a 7-inch bracelet, then to wrap it around 3 times, I would need about 21 inches of bracelet. So 21 inches is actually a good size length for a necklace as well. So this is the easiest way that I have determined how to quickly assess how long to make a necklace / wrap bracelet. 3 times the size of your wrist, and you can use it for both without very little adjustment to the necklace or bracelet. I've decided on a 7-inch bracelet wrapping 3 times, so I have about 21 inches of thread that I'm going to need just to get the length that I need for the project. And of course we want to add a few inches to that so that we have a little extra to work with when we need to tie our thread off at the end. And I'm also going to add another little bit of math in here. We are going to then double that length. So if I want 21 inches, I'm going to double it. So I'm going to want about 42 inches because I will actually be threading both ends of my thread, and I'm going to use my thread doubled. So that 21 inches becomes 42, and then add a few inches to that just so that you've got plenty of room to pull through the eye of your needle, and you always want a little bit of extra room at the end, extra little bit of thread at the end there for tying off your knots and just making sure that you don't run out of thread. So I've got about 50 inches of thread here. Once I've done all of my calculations, about 50 inches of thread is about what I need for a 7-inch bracelet. I have both ends of my thread threaded through a needle, and I want to make sure that the thread that I'm pulling through the eye of the needle is the same for both needles. So both needles here I have about the same amount of thread pulled through. This will only work if we make sure that everything we do is even on one side of our thread and the other, and that way we don't end up with less thread on one side or on one needle towards the end of our project and it's too late. I'm going to take my thread, or take my needle, just one of them for now, and push it through one of my beads in my little right angle weave ball here. Bring my needles together. I want to keep my needles together here so that I know exactly where my thread ends. And then as I pull it down, I will have that centered on my 50-inch length of thread. So now what I'm going to do is actually start beading my bracelet / necklace. I'm going to start by picking up a couple pieces or a couple seed beads here, one on each of my needles. So 2 seed beads on each needle. Again, keep those needles together as you push your seed beads down. And then I'm going to pick up another bead. I'll use one of my 4mm bicones. And the 4mm bicone will actually allow you to put 2 needles through. I'm using a size 10 needle for this. So if you're using anything smaller than a 10, like an 11 or 12, you'll definitely be able to get it through that bicone. Again, just keeping everything even. So now I've created a nice little segue from my bracelet, or from my clasp into my bracelet. At this point, it's a little bit of just really using your imagination. You have options here. Because we're doubling up our thread, we can use the thread as one piece, and like we did with the bicone, put one bead over both pieces of thread, or we can then separate the threads and use them and put different beads on each piece. So let me give you a little example here. I'm going to pick up 3 more seed beads and 3 on each side of my thread, so 3 on each needle. Keeping my threads together, my needles here at the end, keep those together, push it down, and now I'm going to put another bead on through down on both of my threads. So let me pick one of my little rhodonite beads here, and rhodonite will have a large enough hole here that you can just put both needles through that bead. So when you get that, when you push that down, you'll see I have the illusion of what looks like a herringbone pattern here, but I didn't do any bead weaving. This is just stringing. So if you continue with this pattern, you'll have a lovely pattern of bicone, something that mimics herringbone, and a beautiful pink rhodonite bead. And then we can continue this. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put this faux herringbone, this fake imposter herringbone, on the other side of my bead. So I'll do a little mirror image here. And I'll complete that with another bicone. So here I have something that looks very formal and mimics herringbone. So it looks like you did a little bit more work than you actually did, which is always nice. So from this point on, I can continue making this pattern, or I can play around with it and make it all different kinds of patterns. I can also throw a little cross action in here. So what we can do here is a little diagonal stitch as well, where we pick up, I'll pick up 2 seed beads this time. So 2 seed beads on each one of my threads, or each one of my wires, my threads. I'm not using wire, I'm using thread. And then I may want to pick up another bicone, or actually let me use this little 3mm round since I haven't used this yet. So to do a diagonal stitch, what you would do is you would pick up one of your beads here, but then you're going to pick up, instead of your bead or your threads, your needles being parallel to each other, you're actually going to cross them. So they're going to go through the bead in opposite directions. So if I go through in the opposite direction here, and I pull this all together, what I have here is my bead, which would normally have the hole facing in the same direction as my thread. Now the hole is going side by side. And to complete this, to mimic it and do a mirror image here, to complete this like you normally would, I'd pick up another two of my little beads here, my seed beads, and then I would pick up another of my 3mm faceted rounds and just repeat that same step. Cross the needles here through that bead instead of taking them through in the same direction. So they're crossing through in opposite directions. And now I have a second little section here of that diagonal stitch. So I'm going to continue in this fashion, and I'm going to repeat a little bit of this section here, and I'm going to come back to this diagonal stitch. So I'm doing both, keeping my needles together and using my both pieces of thread as one piece of thread, and I'm also doing some crossing here with my needles, so I'm taking them through the bead in the opposite direction, and that will give me a variety of different designs as I work from one side of my clasp to the end. And this can be very repetitive, or you can just kind of have fun with it and do something really creative and discover new ways of putting the beads together as you go. I'm going to work on this for a few more inches here and then show you what I've done. I've done about 20 inches of my necklace now. You can see here is where I started, where I added my first side of the clasp, the little ball or cube that I made. And then I continued here with my bicone, my rhodonite round, and I went into a little diagonal stitch. So what I did then is I just took those designs, those same techniques, and I went the rest of my bracelet alternating them. I have a little diagonal stitch here, and I did this one with 5 of my chrome beads, my jet chrome beads. And then I added some of my rhodonite rounds. I only added 3 of them here. Some bicones, back to a little chrome action here. And then you can see I've just continued on and on, repeating the same steps, repeating the stringing on 2 and 1 needles, and you can see how the length of the bracelet here, by alternating that, it makes a really stunning design. You have lots of variety here. The mixture between the metallics and the gemstones, the black and the silver and the pink, it all just works very well together. So what we're going to do now is add the other side of my clasp. I've done about 20 inches. I need about 20 to 21 inches to make my necklace, and that will also allow me to use it as a wrap bracelet for myself with my wrist measurement. We went over in one of those first clips how you can tell about how long you need to make it. But I'm about there now, so I can go ahead and put the loop on this end of my clasp, which will then fit around the little ball that I had added to the other end of my necklace. So to do this, what I'm going to do is pick up some 11 seed beads and just pick up the amount that I need to fit around, to make a little loop to fit around my ball here. Now I counted this earlier, it was about 22. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up those 22 beads, and these are 11's. Got about 10 here. And this is just a guideline. It will depend on exactly which beads you use and which beads you use for your end here. You don't have to do 3mm rounds. You can also do a 4mm. I wouldn't go much larger than 4 though, otherwise it will just be a little bit too big, I think, in proportion to the rest of your piece. So let me add just a couple more seed beads on here. And then I'm going to test this loop out. So I'm going to test this loop out and just see if it looks like it's going to go, like it's going to comfortably fit. And I think it will. I tested it out previously. So if you're at a point where you feel like it's pretty good and you've got the right number of 11-ohs, take your needle and go back down whatever that last bead was for you before this clasp. For me, that's the bicone. And I'm just going to give that a nice tight little tug just so that I know that that loop is nice and tight. And I'm going to try it again. And if I can easily get that loop around the clasp, but without the clasp coming out, without the ball easily just dropping through that loop, then I know that I have got the right number of 11-ohs. So now that that is done, I'm going to take my needle and thread and work my way down the project here. So I'll go past these 11-ohs, go through my rhodonite round, and I've got enough thread here. I might go down another few beads here, so through another section of 11-ohs and another section of my rhodonite round there. At this point, I can take my needle off the thread because I'm not going to be using the needle anymore. With the thread and needle that you still have attached, you're going to just take your needle and thread through all of those seed beads that you just added for your clasp, and just pulling tight to make sure that you don't leave any slack in your design. So just going through all of these seed beads again, all of these 11-ohs that you just added. And you're going to follow, again, the same path. Just go through some beads here, follow your pattern here. And you should have enough thread left on each of your needles that they can end up in the same spot. So here, now I have both my needles and thread, both my threads coming out of the same bead. So I'm going to take my needle off that thread, and I can go ahead and do an overhand knot here, a square knot, which would be right over left and left over right. Grab my thread burner and just burn those ends off. And here I have a wonderful wrap bracelet or necklace. It's not primarily a wrap bracelet, it's not primarily a necklace. It is a double duty piece here where you can really change up the functionality of it for whatever you need it to be. It makes a wonderful wrap bracelet, but then if you want to do something like this and be a little bit more casual during the day, you can then take it off and put it around your neck, and it becomes a little bit more formal for the evening. Wear it with a nice black dress, and you'll be right. You'll be ready for some dinner and drinks with the girls. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and remember to subscribe and check back for more videos just like this one. If you enjoyed this video, please comment below and let us know your thoughts. You can also subscribe to our channel to be notified as soon as we have more beading tutorials out that you will enjoy probably just as much as you enjoyed this one.